Yes, this is another episode of Real Life Game Changers, and we have an absolute game changer joining us today. So wherever you are or whatever you're doing, just comment. Let us know. We want to hear from you. And if you're watching this live, put hashtag live. If you're watching this on the replay, put hashtag replay. And we're going to get this going, because today we are in for a massive treat. I do not know how we're going to pull all of this wisdom out, which I doubt we're going to be able to, but we're going to do as much as we possibly can in the time that we have permitted, because we have someone who has lots of life experience, but also working with some of the most amazing people on the planet in business, in financial education, in personal development. And they've helped, between them, countless. We're surely in the millions of how many people have been helped through this education, through financial literacy, and just generally building businesses and having a powerful impact in the world. So Sharon, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Mark. I'm delighted to be with you and delighted to have everyone join us. Great.
Awesome. So we're going to hear about you and your experience, but just to let people in here, and by the way, when you hear this, you're going to want to hit the share button. You're going to want to start commenting. You're going to want to start asking questions here, because Sharon had the absolute pleasure to work. You were partners with Robert Kiyosaki, right? You were partners. You ran the Rich Dad Education. Is that right?
Yeah, I co-founded the Rich Dad Company with Robert, and we were partners for 10 years, wrote 15 books together, and took the message around the world.
Wow. And that is some, like, I mean, I have read many of Robert's books. I've read many books that you have also been involved with as well, including Outwitting the Devil, which was a manuscript that you managed to get your hands on, right?
Yes. Yeah. It was hidden away for 73 years. And I had the honor of being probably only the fourth or fifth person to read the manuscript when the foundation got it. And I said, this has to get out. This is powerful information for today's world.
Yeah, well, we're going to dig into all of these different books and all of these amazing experiences that you've had, and pull as much wisdom out as possible. But let's start with you. You know, what was life like for Sharon when Sharon was starting out and, you know, finding, you know, your purpose and your meaning in life?
Well, I grew up in a very lower middle class home, Mark. I lived in a small house between my mother's beauty shop and my dad's used car lot. And I used to have, at the age of 10, I said I've been in real estate since I was 10. I had to go scrub out bathrooms between tenants for my father, who had rental properties. And I hated it. I swore I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to be a sophisticated professional. So I was the first generation in my family to go to college. I got my degree in accounting and was one of the very first women hired in public accounting. So there was no glass ceiling. It didn't exist. I had to figure it all out. And moved to Atlanta. I was single in Atlanta, having the great time, but I wasn't in control of my own life. I was working incredibly long hours. About the ripe old age of 25, my parents started looking a whole lot smarter to me. And I had the opportunity to leave public accounting. I made the decision to go. I was very successful, but then I had this opportunity. So I remember going back to my condo, doing pros and cons. Back then it was before PCs, before cell phones, old yellow legal pad, pros and cons. And I could argue both sides, stay in a successful career or try something different. And my hand kind of took off and wrote across the page, why not? And that is still my mantra today. Why not do something different? Why not take a path less traveled? Why not solve a problem or serve a need? Every successful business out there solves problems and serves needs. And so I made the decision to leave. I've never looked back, been an entrepreneur ever since, built many different businesses. The actual decision I made at that point was a bad one. It was probably still the worst business decision I ever made, because I got there and there was all kinds of corruption in that company. But if had I not made that decision, I wouldn't have met a young attorney named Michael Lechter, and we're celebrating 42 years of marriage. So as Napoleon Hill says, out of every adversity comes a seed of an equal or greater benefit. So my worst business decision gave me my best life decision. And so that's where I started. We got married and I started building companies. I started the talking children's industry with the inventor and grew that around the world with partnerships with Disney, Warner Brothers, Marvel Comics, Sesame Street, and learned a lot about publishing and distribution in international markets. And then fast forward a little bit, our oldest son was going off to college and got himself into credit card debt. I was so mad. I thought I had taught him about money. And that was December of 1992. And that's when I dedicated the rest of my life to financial literacy, financial education. So I started working with school systems, hence white hair. It used to be red. And in 96, I met Kiyosaki because he had come to consult with my husband, who's a well-known intellectual property attorney, about this idea he had for a board game. So I met him at the beta test for the cash flow board game. I was the only one that got out of the rat race. And I said, I want to help you commercialize this because the game taught the things that I was teaching, the importance of buying, building, and creating income producing assets. And so in that process, he told me he was going to charge $200 for this board game. And I said, it's kind of pricey. Maybe you should write a brochure that explains the philosophy. And that's when he asked me to be his partner. And with that little brochure that I helped him write was called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We never expected it to take on a life of its own. It was actually written to sell the game. And that it just kind of exploded around the world. And so we basically, at that point in time, became partners. I helped run the company as CEO, and we wrote 15 books together over the 10 years that we were in partnership together. And that's when it was, incredible to build the largest personal finance brand. But when I made the decision to leave in 2007 is when the Napoleon Hill Foundation found out that I was leaving Rich Dad. They reached out and asked me to help reinvigorate his teachings because we know what happened to the economy in 2008. And that began a journey with them. I've written 8 books with them: 3 Feet from Gold, Outwitting the Devil, Think and Grow Rich for Women, and Success in Something Greater. And my most recent book is with Inc. magazine called Exit Rich. So that's kind of my Cliff Notes version. It gets you to where I am today.
This is brilliant. So just for the people who are jumping on who may be watching it live, put a hashtag live if you're watching it live, and put a hashtag replay if you are watching it on the replay. So Sharon here is joining us. And what an amazing few books you just mentioned there. But for those people that may have missed it in the beginning, Sharon co-founded, like you said, it is the #1 personal development and financial education, right?
Yeah, it's the largest personal finance brand in the world. And of course, Napoleon Hill Foundation is probably the largest personal development brand. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, look, many people have read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I mean, we at Real Life here, we do train people in real estate and property investing. And a lot of people, they say the turning point for me was reading that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I lost count of the amount of times that people said to me, like, I read the book, because I say, why property? Why are you getting into this? Because we want to make sure they're, setting goals properly. And so many people, they say that. And very few people maybe watching this could make that connection, but now they can make that connection of all that wisdom. The book I remember the most in terms of you and your flavor is Outwitting the Devil. I mean, what a genius book that was channeled from some wisdom in some way that you were able to keep, like, as you said in your own words, like keep as much of the structure and the brilliance and the wisdom that was there, but make it readable in today's age, and the English as it is today.
It was amazing. For those of you that are watching and listening, they may not know, it was actually written in 1938. Napoleon Hill released the very famous book, Think and Grow Rich, in 1937, after 25 years of developing it and writing it. And when he released it, he was frustrated because he said, even though I'm giving you this thesis of success, it's like the term paper of success, people will read it and not do anything. And it's because of fear holds you back. And so he actually added that last chapter, The 6 Ghosts of Fear. But he was still frustrated about it. And he sat down in 1938. And as you use the word downloaded, he would have used that word if it existed back then. But he really did, basically, in just a few months, created this this book called Outwitting the Devil, and about how fear controls us. And in the book, he says, you can believe I'm talking to the real devil or an imaginary devil. The question is, will you derive any benefit from what I share? And it is such an incredible book. It really helps you open your eyes to your own roadblocks that we put up against ourselves, but also it helps you understand other people and the things that they're facing. And there's lots of different types of fear. Fear either paralyzes us or motivates us. And most of us are paralyzed by fear. And in the book, he talks about a lot of that fear is subconscious, things that happened to us when we were kids. And once you start analyzing it and see it, then you can release it. And he gives you 7 steps on how to conquer that fear to achieve the success you deserve.
Absolutely amazing book. You know, I just want to, before I go into the next piece here, I just want to say, guys, hit the share button on this. There's so much wisdom. Tag some people. We want to give some prizes away, some real life merchandise and to be eligible for that. All you need to do is share this on your timeline, tag at least 10 other people in it. What a gift it is to give someone the opportunity to come and hear from Sharon all the wisdom that this amazing lady has. So for those, I didn't even mention it actually, but like I had a bit of a challenge in the airport, which is why I'm sitting in my car right now. And we decided that, hey, with packed schedules, this must happen anyway. So having Sharon here, we're going to make sure we utilize the time, and it seems to be turning out well. So yeah, I just want to mention something on that book with Outwitting the Devil. I believe what was so clever about it, as I was starting to read it, you know, my little voice, you know, what Blair talks about, the little voice started saying like, you know, is this real? Is this, you know, not, you know, like, oh yeah, that is real. Yeah, that does happen. You know, the thing with the drifters and like you say, all these fears and with the churches and the educational establishment. But then there was always that little voice like, no, come on, it's just really well written. But by the end of it, my conclusion was absolutely, like, this has been channeled from, you know, the storehouse, the wisdom, whatever you want to call it, and very beautifully put into this book that was then published, you know, thanks to you and all the other people that were involved in it. So absolutely it's amazing. What would you say, like, as you were going through it, and I'm guessing like you didn't just read the manuscript, you were kind of studying it as you go along. Like, what was your kind of realizations or biggest takeaways that you started to have?
Well, I think there are several, Mark, because I had a son that was troubled with depression. And in fact, we lost him 10 years ago. But at the time, it really helped me understand where that was coming from and helped me be able to communicate with him better and support him. But also so many people around us that are just paralyzed in fear and they can't get past it. And to find the tools to help somebody, you know, you can talk to somebody till you're blue in the face and they're not going to hear you. But if you give them this gift of outwitting the devil, they can discover themselves in it. And I think it really is a pathway of self-discovery. And, you know, Napoleon Hill takes on every taboo of the time. You know, he talks about your diet, your religion. He talks about sex. He talks about your education. He took on every taboo of the time about how it has can become holding you back. And for instance, he talks about religion. Did you learn your religion through fear or through faith? And that one really shook me because, you know, I grew up in a Southern Baptist church. And my minister was fire and brimstone on Sunday. I just knew I was going to hell. And yet the youth minister that I spent a lot of time with was really loving and taught religion through faith. So it was just like this giant light bulb of realizing, you know, we can learn things because we want to and do it through faith, or we can learn things through fear. And that fear stays with us and it's implanted deep in your subconscious. And until you reveal it and release it, it impacts your decisions every day. And it's very important. And I think that's the power behind Outwitting the Devil, because it talks to you about drifting, where you let the world just go by. You're reactive. You're not proactive. You go with the flow. So you're not in control of your life. Somebody else is. And if you can become a non-drifter, that means you're being decisive. You are in control. You're in the driver's seat of your own life. And it gives you the steps on how to do that, the definiteness of purpose, knowing what you want. What is it that you want to accomplish in life? And then mastery over self, something we all need a little bit more self-discipline, right? and learning from adversity. Bad things happen to us all the time. Are we going to learn from them, or are we going to repeat them? So you learn from that adversity. And then one of the most powerful things in the book is controlling your environment. You know, hang around with people like Mark, hang around with people that support you and educate you and want you to achieve. So many of us hang around with people that want to hold us back. And it's really hard because we're in an environment of people that don't want you to succeed. And so it's really important to pay attention to that and change your environment. The environment also includes, what are you reading? What are you listening to? When this whole pandemic started, we had a world of nothing but negativity. I started something called Sharon's Daily ATMs, Abundance, Tips, and Mentorship, a message every single morning of positivity, because I was so frustrated with the amount of negativity in the world. And it's really important to understand, control your environment. What are you allowing yourself to be in? And then time. Are you spending your time letting it go by? Because you don't get it back. That's our only precious resource. We don't, time comes and goes and it's gone. You don't get it back. You can make money, lose it, and make it back, but not time. Or are you investing your time? It's easy. Think about it. If you're investing your time, then you're investing your time in education, in buying, building, creating assets, and it allows you to have a more happy and sustainable life in the future.
I heard an amazing quote the other day, part of this, whole training I was participating in, and it said, "If you don't invest time and money, you won't have time and money." And I just thought that was like nothing truer than that. But like you just explained, fear tends to take a lot of people out of the game and stop them making, moves, and sometimes very straightforward and basic moves. Yeah, so amazing. We got a couple of questions here, guys. If you have any questions that you want to ask on here right now and get a live answer here from Sharon with all of the books that she has written and rewritten, which is Outwitting the Devil, and so what, you could just name some of the books apart from Rich Dad Poor Dad, like all the books you did with Robert. Yeah, what were some of those books?
Oh, well, Outwitting the Devil was by far the best mindset. Cash Flow Quadrant was the second book in the Rich Dad series that I wrote. And it's all about your mindset, about how you think about money. And in it talks about the 4 ways we make money: employee, self-employed on the left side of the quadrant, which is you exchanging time for money, what we just talked about. All right. If you don't get out of bed, you don't get paid. And that's what school teaches us to do. School teaches us to be employees or self-employed. And we're not supposed to be in a team environment. The right side of the quadrant is B&I, business owner and investor. And that's where you have other people's money, time, and resources working for you. And that's what I teach people. My superpower is helping people convert from the left side of the quadrant to the right side. And you do that through the powerful word, my favorite word on earth, assets. And I say assets are sexy because the older you get, the sexier they become. And you want more assets because they allow you to get your time back. As your assets start working for you, they become your employees. And so they're working 24/7 for you. And all of a sudden, you've got your time back so you can do other things and have a life of significance.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love it. I love it. So guys, any questions that you have, there's obviously a massive wealth of wisdom right here before you. I just got a question that keeps coming up, and I'm glad it keeps coming up because I didn't forget it. So there's been many rumors, like there always is about any subject, but maybe you can help iron this out for us a little bit. So Napoleon Hill, what I heard was that actually the first book before Think and Grow Rich was the Laws of Success in 16 lessons. But then I just want to tell you what I heard, and then you can kind of either set us straight or give us some additional info. So that was the first book, because it was about 600-700 pages. I did study this book, by the way. This was not a book I read. I literally studied it. It was amazing. And but then because it was too big, then they cut it down, and that was then what made it Think and Grow Rich. Is this along the lines of the truth?
Yeah, the first one was way too long, way too big, and so he synthesized it into Think and Grow Rich. and took those lessons down so that people could have it more manageable. And that's the book that really over 100 million of them have sold around the world in many, many languages. So, but Think and Grow Rich is the foundational principle of most personal development today.
Yeah, that is just wonderful. So, in growing, founding and then growing the Rich Dad Education brand around all this financial education, what would you say was the biggest thing that you took away from working with Robert and all the team? Because I know you guys built a big team of experts, right?
Well, when we first started, it was just the two of us, and it continued to build and grow. And Kim got involved later, and so we had all the Rich Dad advisors come in and join us. So it is all about having the right people around you and having the right team. You know, we were able to combine my background in finance and my background in publishing and his background in entrepreneurship. You know, and so it was really the combination of our backgrounds that allowed us to write the books. And you know, Rich Dad Poor Dad was a huge success from viral marketing before Amazon, before the internet. And it was because people had read it and shared it with others. We never expected it to explode the way it did around the world. And it was something that allowed us to understand. So when I started the Talking Children's book, I knew that we had this technology, and kids at that time didn't have electronics. And so how can they trust us? And so we aligned with companies like Disney, Warner Brothers, Sesame Street. That power of association allowed us to build that very quickly around the world because parents trusted those brands. And so I quickly understood is if we wanted to build Rich Dad around the world, we needed to find the right companies that could have a footprint that allow us to expand the message. And so that's why we published Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Cash Flow Quadrant through a company my husband and I owned, and continued to build it on our own until we had that point of saturation where all the big publishing houses came to us. And we did a deal with Warner Books that helped take us around the world. We had Oprah helped us explode it. And then we wanted to do infomercials. We reached out to Time Life. They came to us and they wanted to do infomercials. So I teach The Power of Association, the first book that I did with the foundation, 3 Feet from Gold. I took my background experience and said, really think about your own personal success. It's your passion and your talent, right? For me, my passion was I was mad we weren't teaching kids about money in school, and my talent was years in publishing and years as a CPA. So I was able to combine that, but most of us stop there thinking we have to do everything on our own. And the true personal success equation is passion plus talent times association, having the right people around you, having the right people on your team, having people who are strong where you are weak, having the right partners like Disney, Warner Brothers, right? Those helped us establish the Talking Books. And then later with Warner Books helped us spread Rich Dad around the world. And the next day is taking action. How many of us know what we're supposed to do, but we just don't do it? We're drifters, we're lazy. So you have to take action. And the last element is plus F, faith. Having faith in yourself, having faith in what you're doing, having faith that it's needed and necessary, having faith that you will succeed. And many times that F is actually fear. And it's what holds people back from creating the success they deserve. So when I do a lot of one-on-one mentoring as a way to give back. And in those mentoring clients, I take them through that formula. Your passion, your talent, your associations, your action, and your faith. And usually it's the associations that need work and the faith, the self-confidence. And they actually go hand in hand. When you have the right people on your team, when you have the right mentor, you have the right advisors, you have the right people on your team, that you will feel better about yourself. And when you have a bad day, they lift you up. And so business is a team sport. It's very important to know that you have to surround yourself with the right people. And if there's somebody in your circle that's pulling you back, start limiting the time you spend around them.
Absolutely. I mean, you definitely talk in the language of most of the community that will be watching this here from real life. Is very much a family and people who help each other and lift each other up, because there are a lot of people that go out their way to take others down. Like sometimes I think, man, like if you put all of this effort onto something useful, you'd be pretty successful. You know, so sometimes it goes beyond me of why people go to so much effort. So we've got some questions, a couple of questions here. I'm going to just go to them in a second. I just want to ask you a question. You know, you talk about the power of association. I just finished writing a book on real estate, on property investing. And I was working with my coach, my mentor, and we were saying who should do the foreword. Yeah. So, like, a question to you with all your wonderful publishing experience, and let's face it, wrote some of the best books on the planet. Like, what advice would you give to someone like me to get someone either like you or Robert or both to like write a foreword? And would that be the right thing to do for someone like me to like seek out people like you and Robert to say, would you write my foreword?
Well, absolutely. You want somebody that has a reputation of success in where you want to go. You want to make sure it's somebody who's reputable, somebody who's been there and done that, and somebody that also has an audience. You know, one of my dear friends, Steve Forbes, has always been a fantastic supporter and endorsed all of my books. And I think it's really important to know who your circle is and how that power of association works. And it's not just the forward, but having other people endorse your books as well. That shows the fact that you have that power of association working for you.
So like what advice would you give to me to go ahead and like put that in action and start moving towards?
Well, you start establishing those relationships and you reach out. If the book is written, you have you know, the highlights of it. But for instance, some people will endorse books without reading them. I tend to be the exact opposite. I do endorse a lot of books, but I don't endorse them unless I actually do read them. And but it's something that you want to have somebody that has that reputation, and you start finding a way to connect with them, and not just blindly send them a request, but find a way to support them and connect with them, and then ask them if they would, and give them enough time. That's one of my biggest pet peeves is I'll find somebody reach out to me, somebody that I care about, but they need an endorsement, you know, within 5 or 6 days. And my schedule is crazy. It's like, I need like a month to 2 months to be able to get back to people. And so give whoever you're talking to enough of a timeline. Also, prepare some sample endorsements or a sample forward that gives them something that they can start to work with, make their life easier. And at the end of the day, the easier you make it for them, the easier it is for them to say yes.
Nice. Beautiful. Thank you for that. So Kevin is saying, does this actually work? I'm not 100% sure what Kevin is referring to, but if it is to do with like this power of association and I mean, let's face it, like if everyone asks themselves this question, when was the last time you bought something from someone or somewhere where you didn't know them? Like, it does happen, but very rarely. You know, either you know the person, either you know the brand, or you know the item because it's like a commodity or whatever. Yeah. So like, does it work? I mean, absolutely. People are making decisions without realizing why they're making the decisions. Let's get to this question.
You also have to make sure you're taking care of your own personal brand, and because when there's somebody that they're reaching out to me and I see, we do the background, we look and see their social media presence, we look to see what their reputation is. So it's really important to establish yourself and to create that in essence your story so that people can see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's what like we get from working with people like yourself and Robert and Blair, and that the people who are cut from that cloth, so to say. Like, everyone seems to be doing the right thing for the right reason and got good heart behind it. And it seems to pay off. Well, not seems, it definitely pays off every time to do that. I just want to go to this question. Mandy's got a question here. I'm going to kind of condense the question because it's quite a long here. Well, thank you for sharing this much information. So, you know, Mandy she wanted to develop an app, signed with an NDA, found out that got diagnosed with cancer. Things started looking up, but then, you know, she's now just filled with fear, right? And feel like, you know, she's living in fear daily, and she don't know how to snap out of it. What advice would you have?
Well, if you've not read Outwitting the Devil, I'd say start by reading Outwitting the Devil or listening to it. The audiobook is incredible. I have 2 actors that play the part, so it's almost like a radio drama. But it might help you figure out where that fear is based and be able to, once you can identify it, you can find a way to release it. But the other thing is to start getting that power of association with other people in that industry, other app people. Because the more you learn, the more people you get associated with in that world, you'll be able to find people that can help you take it to the next level. So make sure you're out, putting yourself out there with the right people, you're the environment you're choosing to be with.
Great. I mean, Mandy, take action on that. First thing is the book. I didn't know there was, I mean, obviously there's an audio for most books nowadays, but the way you described it, I could just imagine if it is being played out.
It's pretty amazing. Yeah, I required them to get 2 separate actors, and the devil's voice is low and grovelly. I get people calling me all the time, and I'd pull off the side of the road because it scared them so much. But it's a pretty amazing audiobook.
Yeah, I might have to give that a listen. Awesome. So next question, Zima is asking, have you known Bob Proctor personally? Is that something that you brought up earlier? Was it?
Yes, I knew Bob. It's a real loss that he's not with us anymore. But he was a real gift to anybody who knew him, and he was the same off stage as he was on stage. So a real testament to generosity and belief and faith.
Yeah, awesome. And Zima is asking, like, what insight would you share with us regarding how he was as a person?
Well, as I said, he was the same off stage as he was on stage. He always believed, and he was a huge advocate for Think and Grow Rich. He carried his original one, and it was like rubber banded together because it was falling apart. He read Think and Grow Rich every single day of his life. And he was just a huge heart. It was a real loss when he left this world.
Wow, that is awesome. And there's many people on here. I can see some names. I know that they are big fans for all of these names that you're mentioning: Napoleon Hill, Robert Kiyosaki, and Bob Proctor, and the many other amazing people that are spreading the light and the love around this planet. Yeah. So anybody else got questions? Please do put them in the comments. This is your opportunity to ask a question and get it answered live right now with Sharon here.
I'd also recommend that lady that had the question that she said she was in fear is read Think and Grow Rich for Women as well, because it was an honor to do that book, and I highlight over 300 women in the book. We talk about how you can take that step to get out of that level of fear.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, that book and the section about the 6 fears as well, changed the trajectory of my life. Like that combined with all the other things with Blair's Little Voice Mastery, and what I found is like this theory and this insight is good, and people will go and read these books, but then people have got to go find a way to put this into practice. And one thing I found was this cool thing that anybody can go and do. And I started out just with cold showers, and I came up with my whole thing. I was going to have a shower. At the end of the shower, I turn it to cold for 30 seconds, then warm again, and then cold again for another 30 seconds, and then get out. So I wanted 2 doses of the cold to see how my little voice reacted and see like what's the fear. And I came up with this little statement where I said, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the cold on. I'm going to see what comes up in my mind. I'm going to see what story starts to get created, because ultimately all that's happening is I'm just standing under cold water, and like practicing this for about 5 years now. I've done this, and then it turned into going to plunge pools all the way throughout the year. So in the winter it is very cold, in my back garden. But like the practice upon top of all of the theory that you'll get and the insight from these amazing books, that was what really took it to another level, because then you experience in real time a fear or a story like, get out, it's too cold, there's no time, nobody will know, it's only one day, just let yourself off, you know, all of this garbage starts to get created. And then you can actually, in the moment, real time, you either choose to fall for it or you choose to overcome it, because you made an agreement. I made an agreement with myself. I'm going to get in there. I'm going to do this every day, no matter where I'm in the world, whenever it is. I always do it. I cannot, because where do I draw the line if I don't do it one time? If I don't do it one time, where do I draw the line? That's my agreement with myself. So that's
well,
what
that's part of mastery over self, which was the second step. And mastery over self is being in charge of and being in control of your own actions. And that helps you overcome that fear. So that's what you just described.
Yeah. And do you have any other, you know, practical applications where people can actually do the training and do the work? Do you have any other tips or things that you would recommend?
Well, absolutely. And I see there's another comment about my book, Exit Rich. You know, part of it is, you know, we don't know what we don't know. So you need to surround yourself with people that can help you take that next step, open that next door, and have the right advisors, have a mentor. And so I've helped a lot of people. And when you start a business, you have a mission. What is that business? What problem is it solving? What need is it serving? But when you start it, what is your exit strategy? What do you want to accomplish? Not just to be successful, because you want a successful, yes, you want a successful business, but you want it to be sustainable. You want it to be scalable and saleable. Way too many business owners own a job, not a business. And so as a lot of your folks are entrepreneurs, if you really want to be a game changer, you want to be able to scale what you're doing. And so this last year, I released the book Exit Rich with a co-author that was a business broker, but also in partnership with Inc. magazine, because I wanted people to understand how to put the structure and the foundation of your business together so that you can not just have a successful business that feeds you today and tomorrow, but one that is sustainable and scalable that gives you your life back. And eventually you can either sell it or you've positioned it with the systems and the strength that allows it to live on beyond you and provide for you.
You know, and that ties in. We've got another question, and it's just kind of made me remember, you know, from traveling all over the world and working on myself and training with others, training others, you know, with Blair and the rest of the team. It already reminded me of this phrase where people are saying, like, you be around like-minded people. And I like that, and it does set people in the right direction. The challenge is with that, I had to take it to another level, because if we're with like-minded people, when everything's going well, everyone's all positive. But then if it takes a dive and you're around like-minded people and everyone's of the same thinking life, like, oh no, here's a problem, then it becomes a problem. And I always remember, you know, realizing it's not just like-minded people, but I want to be around trained people, because the trained people, they like, at least one person could say, hold on a minute, guys, we're getting sucked in here. You know, let's remember the training, let's remember the steps, let's get composed. And this is what Natalie is asking, right? What do you think helps to create a more positive outlook? What's the piece of training we can remember to do this?
Well, a lot of that, and what you just talked about, like-minded people, you want a mentor. You want somebody that has the wisdom and the experience that understands that those hiccups are short-lived, that you can learn from them and get through. And that helps you maintain that positive attitude. It comes back to the power of association. If you don't have a mentor in your life, you're missing out, because a mentor is somebody who's been where you want to go. They have the seasoned knowledge, the wisdom, and they've basically probably have a few scars from things that they've lived through. So they can help you understand how to persevere, how to get through it, what doors, maybe even open a door for you. And so to have that positive outlook, make sure you surround yourself not just with like-minded people, but with people who are successful where you want to be successful, so that you gain from their experience, both their successes and their failures. And it speeds your avenue to success very, very much. So if you don't have a mentor, I highly recommend you seek one.
Yes, absolutely, for sure. mentoring, coaching, training, being in environments where people facilitate, like, because it's not always being about told what to do. It's just being in the environment where the facilitation, I know Robert, I know Blair, they're always talking about the facilitation of things, and that's where we got the most growth. So like we want to fast kind of, so do some quick fire questions here because it's starting to come through. So let's go to Charlotte. Charlotte's saying, what book would you recommend from Napoleon Hill first?
Well, I used to always say Think and Grow Rich, but if you are at all stressed or know that you have fear, I would start with Outwitting the Devil and then go to Think and Grow Rich. If you are a female in business, you can start with Think and Grow Rich for women and then go with Think and Grow Rich, because you want to feel like you're reading something that was written for you. And so either Outwitting the Devil or Think and Grow Rich for women would be where I would start.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Then Kevin is saying, who can succeed? Does it take a knowledgeable person, or can anyone succeed and be rich?
Well, anyone can succeed and be rich if they follow one simple formula: buy, build, or create income-producing assets. Success is also not really about money. It's about how you feel about yourself when you look in the mirror. But if you want to be rich, the quickest way, the richest people in the world either made their money through real estate or they hold their wealth in real estate. So understand diversification against all asset classes: paper assets, businesses, real estate, intellectual property. All of those things help you become recession-proof. And you want to make sure you study that and you focus on buying, building, creating income-producing assets. Mm. And you don't have to have a PhD or a doctorate to do it.
Let's face it, most of the success stories we hear of today are like dropouts. Yeah. So interesting that you've got both sides of the story. So let's go to Tara. What tips would you give for ongoing positive mindset and growth?
Well, no, there are lots of tips. Let me see. My 3 top tips would be to stay in gratitude every single morning or evening. Be grateful for what's in your life, because that helps you push away the negative. Identify people that inspire you and follow them, read from them. You can check out my ATMs if you want that daily dose of positivity. But also recognize that, whatever is happening right now is going to pass. A difficulty, a mistake, is not a definition. It's an occurrence. We all make mistakes, but that's an occurrence. It doesn't define who we are. So just promise yourself to say, okay, that happened. What am I going to learn from it? And start looking forward. And the third one would be to find that mentor, somebody that's going to help keep you focused in the right direction. You can go to personalsuccessequation.com. I have a whole workbook about you defining your own personal success equation. It's free. Personalsuccessequation.com as a gift to all of your listeners and viewers.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. So yeah, just say that out again. And guys, whoever's listening, if you can just type it in so then everybody's got it. What was that URL again?
Personalsuccessequation.com.
Wonderful. Thank you. So let's go to the next wonderful viewer here. So I think Micture is asking, how did you find out about the book? I think you touched on it a little bit before, yeah. But how did you find out about it?
I'm happy to share with that. I had known the Napoleon Hill Foundation, Don Green, the CEO, for years because we were building Rich Dad. So we were at the book fair together. And when he found out that I was no longer at Rich Dad, he reached out to me. And that's when he asked me to help write Think 3 Feet from Gold, which was the first book I did with the foundation. And it was released in 2009 in the midst, of course, the financial crisis. We wanted to reinvigorate Napoleon Hill's teachings. So the month we released 3 Feet from Gold was when Don called me and said, I have this manuscript. I just got it from the estate of Napoleon Hill's wife, and I don't know what to do with it. So he sent it to me to get my opinion. And I mentioned I was probably only the 4th or 5th person to read the manuscript. It had been locked away in a vault for 72 years. And so I still remember I do most of my writing at the ocean in San Diego. So I ran over to San Diego with this to read it, turned off my phone and outside world. And in just a few hours, I read it and I said, this has got to get out. This is life-changing. And so I worked very diligently with the board because they were a little tenuous about releasing it, but the information was so critical. And so what I did was I just did some precision editing. I did not change his words, but I did annotate. So when you read through the book, you'll see my comments are in a different type font. They're in bold. So if you're a diehard Hill fan, you can bypass what I write and just read the manuscript as he wrote it. But we were trying to get the Napoleon Hill information into the younger generation. And I wanted to show the impact of it from 1938, when this was written, to when we released it. And it was just an incredible project. And I'm just so honored and thrilled with it. But that's how it all happened. And after Outwitting the Devil is when I wrote Think and Grow Rich for Women. And then I wrote Success and Something Greater. So.
And I remember reading that book. I did really get the sense of you were telling this story and like helping like the understanding and helping the you know, just making it very
a bridge between when it was written and when it was released. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, because, you know, I've got some of his other stuff as well, and it's very old, kind of like, you know, sometimes the sentences are very clunky in how we speak today. So yeah, it was an amazing job that you did there. Thank you for that. We got a nice question. This is quite interesting. So how is Think and Grow Rich for Women different from the original?
Well, thanks for that question. Yeah, the Think and Grow Rich for Women, that's actually the very first question in the book. I wrote, first line said, why a book for women? When Think and Grow Rich was released in 1937, women were not in business. There were no women. And when I released Outwitting the Devil, Dawn said, you know, I think it's time we write a book for women. And most of my career, I actually avoided doing things specifically for women because I believe the steps to success are the same for men and women. But at that point in time, I was actually getting frustrated with the dialogue. So many women out there were complaining and criticizing the men that stood in their way. And I'm going, stop it, stand in your own power. Instead of complaining and criticizing, which of course, that only attracts negativity when you're being negative. And so let's change from our thought process, our dialogue, from complaining and criticizing to one of celebration. Let's celebrate the progress women have made. Do we have more to make? Of course. But also let's celebrate the men that have helped us along the way. Because when you celebrate, you're going to attract positive results instead of criticizing and complaining. And that was one of the big reasons I wrote the book. The second one was I was getting inundated with women of talking about work-life balance. And I go, there is no work-life balance. The balance belongs in the yoga studio. We have one big life. We have our work, we have our family, we have our friends, we have our faith, we have our physical, we have our personal finances. All of those things create who we are. We're never in balance. We're always moving. We're always doing different things. And one day you might spend, you know, not have enough time for your kids. And so you feel guilty about it. Well, don't waste precious time today worried about what happened yesterday. Just make a different decision. Spend more time with your kids today. And, you know, don't work-life balance is kind of black and white. We live in a world of choices. If you're not happy with the choices you made before today, just start making different choices.
Absolutely. You know what, I just kind of got the vibe of, like, you got so much to share, so much amazing things. So I want to hear, please do put your comments in this right now. What's been your takeaway? What's been like a penny drop moment? What's been something that you're going to be able to take away from this and you're going to start doing differently or start doing additionally, or maybe even going to stop doing something? Yeah, please do write that in the comments from what you've got from this wonderful Game Changers session with Sharon. What do I want to ask you? I wanted to ask you something. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. You know, I just had this vision in my mind, Sharon. What would be so awesome is, like, around Christmas time, you know, we're all sitting there with logs burning on the fire, and you're just telling us all of these wonderful stories, you know, bringing us all together, connecting people. And I just
check out my daily ATMs. You can go to atm.sharonlechter.com. It's very inexpensive, but every single day I'm dropping positive words of being standing in your own power. Every one I end with every single day, I end with, you are fabulous, because we have way too many people who don't feel that they're worthy. They don't feel like they're good enough. And I want to change that. I want you all to know you're perfect. There's only one of you. God only made one of you. You are perfect just the way you are. What happens is we start looking at ourselves through lenses and comparing ourselves to other people. That fear of criticism is one of the biggest fears in our world today. And I want you to blast through it and realize that you are fantastic. You are fabulous just the way you are. And you are exactly the way God wanted you to be. And so stand in your own power. Be proud of yourself and know that if you don't have something you want, then start making choices. Go back to that personal success equation. Say, who do I need to be around? Who can help me take that next step to move in the right direction?
That is brilliant. Normally I ask 2 questions at the end of each show, but you kind of answered one. I normally say, like, what's a 30-second message to all the people out there? But I think that was it.
Yeah, that's you. You are the CEO of your own life. You're in the driver's seat. And if you don't like where you're headed, turn the turn signal, go somewhere different, and find somebody to help you along the way.
Nice. And we got some amazing takeaways. So keep your takeaways coming, type them in. I know there's plenty of you watching. They're starting to filter through now. So this is amazing. I'll make sure I read every single one of these. But there's one last question. Yeah, this comes from our community. Yeah, and I asked this to everyone so we can add it to the vault. There's something we say in our community, right? And we can never, ever let people forget this. And that's that they must do the right thing for the right reason. Now, why is that?
Well, that's how you can feel good about yourself when you look in the mirror. You know whether what you're doing is what you need to be doing. And when you look in the mirror, that's your definition of success. Do you feel good about yourself? And when you allow someone else to control your actions, you're not in control, and you can't feel good about that. You are the one that's in the driver's seat. And allow yourself to be open to the possibilities and remain curious. Yeah, do the right things for the right reason, but also don't ever stop asking, why not? Why not do something different? Why not take that path less traveled? Why not experience something new? I challenge my community all the time. When was the last time you did something for the first time? Because that means you're remaining curious and creative.
Yeah, good. Thank you. You see, when you ask a question, the brain automatically answers. So when you said that, when was the last time? My thing was do a real life Game Changers from my car outside of an airport. The first time I did this.
First time. There you go.
Yeah. So that's awesome. Thank you. You have shared so much. I just wondered if we could add this to the vault, because what the saying we have in the real life community is you got to do the right thing for the right reason, because that's the only way to discover your true potential. So can I ask you again, and you say it's the only way to discover your true potential?
Sure.
Awesome. Thank you. So we have this saying in our community, you got to do the right thing for the right reason. Now, why is that?
Well, because that's how you're going to discover the next step for yourself.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Sharon, you have shared so much wisdom. I don't even think people realize if they watch this over and over and over again, it will start to embed, and they'll be able to kind of like unpeel and unpack all of these insights and these, let's face it, pieces of like practical application. They can go and take what you've said here and put it into practice. So really looking forward to seeing people's success. Make sure you keep us up to date with all your moves that you make on our page, and you can message us directly and reach out to Sharon. I mean, look at all these amazing gifts and resources Sharon is making available. Go check them out, and let's spread the light. So Sharon,
email me info@sharonlechter.com. I'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. And you know what? Thank you so much. It's been an absolute privilege speaking with you. And even for this short time, I think we could have gone on for many hours, keep unpacking all of this. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here, Sharon.
Thank you. Fantastic. And you are all fabulous.
Excellent. That is a message we all need to take with us. So as Sharon said, you got to do the right thing for the right reason, because that's the only way you're going to discover your true potential. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.